Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and get started.
Question, and then we'll come to you, gentlemen there. One question from the internet audience. Oh, they're early today. I'm getting a signal that the food is ready. No, we have, no, they'll have to hold on. Don't get hungry right now. We still have about 20 minutes to go.
If you permit, I'm going to give you two.
Two questions, yes.
This one is from Vipan K. Is Brahman the cause of the universe? If not, how can the universe come out of nothing? And Sudhir K. Does Advaita Vedanta recognize the omniscience of God? Does it consider him or her all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent? Or is such a God a myth in Advaita Vedanta?
Let me try to see how much knowledge I've obtained watching these videos. So the first part, how did the universe come from nothing? This is actually something that I've also kind of questioned, where I kind of bashed Western religion on this, but then again, I was arrogant at the time because even scientists couldn't recognize it. Because, you know, a lot of religious people say, oh, God created the universe. Okay, then who created God? He's always existed. Somehow that theory is kind of now the prevailing theory in my own head. It's like, ah, crap. I guess this was kind of asked with Neil deGrasse Tyson, I believe. There were, I think it's one of his Wired talks or something like that, where they asked what was before time. And he kind of answered it to, like, it almost seems like he was avoiding the question, but I don't think he was necessarily avoiding it. There's just no answer. How can you answer a question? How can you answer a question before there was ever time? And when I think about that, I was like, I guess that is kind of an impossible question to answer, because before there was time or space or whatever you want to call it, there was literally nothing. You can only go back to the point of origin. I think. I don't think you can go back further than that, because there's nothing. When there's nothing to measure. There's just nothing there to see, to measure with anything. So you can only make an assumption. Second part, does Advaita Vedanta acknowledge God? As far as I can tell, no. There is, in this sense, no God. At the same time, everything's God. So basically, Advaita Vedanta, from my understanding, is that we are all God, everything's God, and duality is where God is separate from everything. There's God and there's everything else. That's I can't remember the terminology for it now. Duality. I can't remember what non-duality is at Advaita Vedanta, but duality. Again, I used to think that way, but whenever it was explained by Swami here, I understood what Advaita Vedanta means now. So I am now that. Just as far as it explained in terms that everything is Brahman. Basically, Brahman is existence. Therefore, we exist. Therefore, we are Brahman. This pen exists. It is Brahman. By that definition, I completely agree. I am not duality anymore. Duality being that God is separate and then everything else. So I'd say no, it does not say that there is a God. It says that everything is, and nothing is separate from Brahman.
All right, two questions. Is Brahman the cause of the universe? If not, then how did the universe come from? How does the universe come from nothing? Or how can the universe come from nothing?
Sorry, I forgot to say that one. I think the answer would be probably for that one is that everything in existence has always existed. So again, about the 84 number and the Big Bang, I personally believe that the Big Bang has happened multiple times. I don't know how many, but Sadhguru said the number 84 is significant. And I'm thinking that maybe the Big Bang happened 84 times, where the universe expanded and then it collapsed into a singularity, and then all of a sudden it got compressed so hard that it exploded again, and then it compressed and exploded. It makes you wonder how many times Earth was created, how many times that we've lived this life, or how many times we've had this life, or just crazy stuff.
One question. And the other question is, does Advaita Vedanta recognize God or accept God? God means a God of religion, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, all-powerful, everywhere. Or is such a God a myth in Advaita Vedanta? So it's a standard question. What's the status of the old guy in... in Vedanta, it can be an old guy, it can be the old lady, it can be young, and man, woman, without form, in all forms. Yes, so direct question. Does Advaita Vedanta accept God? Yes.
But not as a separate thing, though.
But it is a very nuanced approach, which you must understand. This question is understandable. Why this question has been asked? This has been asked for more than 1,000 years. Ever since Shankaracharya wrote the Bhashyas, commentaries, actually explaining what the Upanishads mean from an Advaita perspective, the immediate attack was from two sides. The Buddhists, of course, but from the Hindus themselves. In Uttarakhand, sadhus put it humorously. The Hindus were shocked. They said, these fellows, non-dualists, are they Hindus at all? They will say in Hindi, Shiv ji ki aradhana karte ho? Do you worship Shiva? Do you accept Shivaratri, or the worship the Divine Mother? Or do you go on pilgrimages? Do you go to temples? Do you take baths in holy rivers? Do you perform Shraddha and all the rituals of the of Hinduism? Are you Hindus at all or not? Very big question. Doubtful guys. These guys are and the attacks, not only just common people, philosophers on the Hindu side. Prachanna Buddha. Shankaracharya is a crypto-Buddhist. Buddhists rejected him, and the Hindus also rejected him. So what was his answer to the Hindu side? His answer was that the sadhus in Uttarakhand put it nicely, Are Baba, hum sab mante hain. Yes, my dear fellow, we accept everything. We accept everything. We can take a dip in the holy Ganga, can go to the temple and worship. In fact, we can accept more than you can accept. We can accept Shiva and Vishnu and Kali, but we can also accept the God of the Christians or the Muslims, because we all see that they are all different forms and names of the same reality. So we accept it.
But I guess the problem with that is the fact that these Western religion or Abrahamic religion is duality is the problem. But that's, again, another thing about Hinduism is the fact that that's fine. We accept you still. Even though I guess Advaita Vedanta is the fact that it's non-duality, God and you are not separate but are the same. And in Abrahamic religion, God is separate from the people.
So what is the conception of God in Advaita Vedanta? It is this. It is called Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities. What is Brahman without qualities? Attributeless Brahman. What is called apophatic in technical language, philosophical language. The path of not this, not this. The ultimate reality, which we sensed with that meditation on awareness, that is not an object. You cannot describe it in any term. But it's real. It's real. In fact, it is the only reality that there is. But that reality alone appears as the God of religion. So when you're talking about the God of religion, Advaita Vedanta calls it Saguna Brahman with qualities. What qualities? Exactly the ones he mentioned: omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-knowing, all present everywhere. Then all-powerful, all-loving, all-good. Ramanujacharya, in Vishishtadvaita, he has a phrase, Ananta Kalyana Gunagana, endless auspicious qualities. So does Advaita Vedanta accept it? Yes, absolutely. And because it is ultimately attributeless, when it takes on attributes, it can have the attributes of Narayana, of Shiva, of the Divine Mother, or it can be Jehovah of the Jews, or the Allah of the Muslims, or the Father in heaven of Christian. It can be. The Advaitin has no problem. So this is one side of it. How do we understand it? It's not very difficult. As we do the analysis on ourselves, I am not the body, not the mind, which we did, attuning the subject to the absolute. I am the awareness, existence, consciousness, bliss. So this existence, consciousness, bliss, this consciousness within, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, with an overlay of the mind and the sensory system and this body, is Sarva Priyananda. And it is this person there, Mo, and is that person there, and that other person, this man, that woman, these plants and animals and dolphins and whales and all living beings. That one consciousness, plus mind, plus body, differentiated, and thinking of itself as a limited being. That same consciousness is absolute. Brahman alone thinks of itself as a jiva, a sentient being. Brahman alone is the jiva. In ignorance, jiva. In knowledge, Brahman. Then pick one. What is reality? Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Pash Baddha Jeev, Pash Mukta Shiv. Tied in the bondage, and in bondage it is jiva, sentient being, us. Freed from bondage, it is none other than Shiva, the ultimate reality. Now, what is God here? I understand, this is the jiva, this is us. But what is God? Just one tweak of this. That same absolute consciousness, existence, consciousness, bliss, associated not with just Sarva Priyananda, mind and body, but associated with all these minds, all these bodies, not these alone, the billions of bodies of all living men and women, all living creatures, from the tiniest bacteria to the biggest blue whale, all of them. And if there are living beings in other worlds, to all the pointy-eared aliens and whatnot, whatever Hollywood can conceive of. All of them, that one consciousness associated with all of them. Can you imagine such a being? The way you look at yourself, imagine how such a being would look at itself. This is the Vedantic conception of God. The immanent consciousness in the universe, identified with the entire living and non-living universe also. The Vedanta has a word for this. It is called Virat, the vast. Virat there, the vast, does not mean the physical universe. It means consciousness associated with the entire physical universe, looking upon itself as one reality. Now, does this exist? This is the God of Vedanta. This is what Arjuna saw in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, is Vishwarupa Darshan. Another name of Virat is Vishwarupa. When Arjuna said, I want to see thy cosmic form, he didn't know what he was asking for. The result was he was terrified. Nowadays they would say mind-blowing experience. Imagine such a form. In public speaking they say we get afraid because 100 people are staring at you. You get nervous. If one person stares at you, you feel nervous. 100 people are staring at you, 1,000 people. The biggest audience I've faced is in Belur Math, 14,000 people. So it's scary because so many people are staring at you. But imagine if all the people in the world today, the 7 billion people living, and the billions who have lived earlier, and the billions who will live in future, and all the living creatures, from bacteria to lions and tigers and elephants and whales and whatnot, all of them together, all of that together, suddenly turns and looks at you. What would you feel? And I'm not making this up. When in the 11th chapter, when Arjuna sees this, the commentator says, what we all experience in slices of time and space, the life we are living, throughout our lives, all the food that we have eaten, all the people that we have met, all the places that we have visited, all the sensations we have had, seeing, hearing, smelling, touch, if all of that, in one time, not just one person, all persons, all experiences at one time, they suddenly burst forth in your consciousness. And as a person, not just an impersonal thing, as the whole thing as a person turns and looks down at you. Immediate reaction. Arjuna says, every hair in my body is standing on end. And the earth trembles at this experience. The earth doesn't tremble, but it's just that Arjuna feels like that. He sees this. What beautiful poetry. As if 1,000 suns were to rise in the sky together. One sun in the sky. As if 1,000 suns were to rise in the sky together. Oppenheimer, he quoted this verse when he saw the first atom bomb explosion. As if 1,000 suns rising in the sky together, I come as time, the destroyer of worlds. That's just one atom bomb. But imagine, so that is God in Vedanta. That is accepted. You might be thinking, I hear a but lurking in the background. You're right, there's a but. This is accepted in what Vedanta calls vyavaharika, transactional plane. Transactional plane. I am an individual being, that is the vast God. But beyond God and individual, beyond ocean and wave, there is one reality, the water which is both ocean and wave. There is one reality, one Nirguna Brahman, which is Saguna Brahman and jiva. What Advaita Vedanta wants to teach is not just that personal devotion of you to that vastness. Rather, it is beyond that vastness and beyond your personality. There is one infinite, attributeless Brahman, impersonal reality. That's the only reality. That is what I am. So what Vedanta teaches, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Which Brahman? Not God. Vedanta does not teach I am God. Vedanta teaches I am that impersonal absolute. Where there is no God, there is no individual. That is what is upsetting to the dualists.
Yeah. I don't know. For some odd reason, I don't know if it clicked for me. I don't think it did. It made me think of something. Impersonal God. Again, thinking that Brahman is existence. And now it makes me think about the story of Brahma. When Shiva, right before Shiva cut off Brahma's 5th head. How Brahma, I can't quite remember the story, Saguna was talking about it, about how Shiva was disappointed, angry at Brahma because why did you create this terrible earth or universe or whatever it may be created? I don't know if people say the universe or just earth. Some said one or the other. But anyways, why did you create this? It's so terrible. It's tragic. And Brahma was saying, I didn't create, in a sense, create this. I didn't tell them what to do. I didn't tell them to be happy or sad. I just created them, and it's up for them to do. So basically, what I was getting at is the fact that this universe was created personalist. It doesn't have personality. It's kind of man, he just said it too. It doesn't have personality. We are the ones that create the personality in this world. I guess that's the creation of ego in each individual living creature. And that's the formless, the true selves of us, is that our true selves do not have ego. Ego is what's created in the world. Our true selves are before the ego's creation. Maybe I'm mixing things together. I'm not sure. But this, and also understanding that Brahman, in my definition, from what I understood from Swami here, is that Brahman again is existence, and it's, in my thinking, it is the thing that creates. It's the thing that's the smallest things of existence. That it's in everything. In everything that exists has Brahman. It's whatever this is, this atom called Brahman, or whatever it may be. It is the smallest thing you can find. You cannot find nothing else smaller than it, and it is in everything that exists. And it also transcends time because it cannot be created nor destroyed. It just changed forms. Kind of like how, again, this used to be plastic and ink, and now it changes into a pen. Like the spirit from that one crazy guy. I can't remember his name now. But yes, so our true selves, which is making sense now about how we do not have personality. God and our true selves, which are one and the same, do not have personalities, do not have emotions. Everything in the physical world, our true selves does not have it. It's unaffected by that. Which, if you look at the Brahman, as I look at it, the individual atoms, they do not have personalities. They are a blank slate in a sense. They can be created and changed into anything, but they do not have... They're not affected by the real world, again, except by changing shape. And also, they're not affected by emotion. Emotion is based on our ego, our thoughts, everything. I don't know if that fits quite right, but it makes some sense. Maybe I think I need to think about it more and refine it a bit more, but it seems to make sense a little bit.
What do you mean, no God?
Yeah.
Yeah. The gentleman there. Please tell us your name and ask the question.
Sudhakar Babu.
Yes.
I have one simple practical question and a regular question. So this morning when you led us in meditation, are we supposed to do our own meditation or follow your instructions? The one that was given to us by our guru.
Oh, the one that is given to you by your guru? Of course, always. Yeah. So, don't get hung up on the techniques of meditation. There's no end to that. Guru taught me something. I've been doing it nicely for 10 years. But this is really a fine Vedantic meditation. Poor old Guru is now replaced. Now let me take up this new improved... Never do such a thing. I don't. I have read all of this. I have practiced them also. But what my Guru gave me and the mantra, always. My personal belief is all this spiritual development progress is coming from that little mantra which the Guru has given. That's the personal belief. All Ishta mantra. Always follow that. And the other things will come and go. If you like something, practice it. It's a good supplement. But it's not your main diet.
This is the second question. You got to bear with me. I'm troubled by this all the time. I know the question of consciousness. People thought there is a thing called life force. And when you die, life force goes away. But as you understand now, modern science, there's no such thing. It's an illusion of life force. Can we use the same analogy for consciousness? I mean, it gives you a feeling that, but, okay.
So, I heard this some time ago about when people die, they say there is a small amount of weight that a person loses at the moment of their death. I don't know if that still holds up true today. I've heard it spoken. It's like it's so small, very minute, but it was a very interesting thing. I don't know whether that was something of Western religion trying to point out, oh, that's when the soul leaves the body. I don't know if it was necessarily thinking that. I think maybe the scientists were saying like, well, there's a small thing that's lost. We just don't know what it is. That's the impression I was getting. And also, I'm wondering if that's not just like electrical signals in your body just stopping, no longer being produced. I don't know. I don't know if that's still true today, though, or not.
I understand perfectly, because we have this discussion all the time. Let me put it in this way. Are you a biologist? Or?
I'm a physician.
Physician. So, what he's saying is, at one time people thought there's something called a life force. And when your body dies means the life goes away, prana goes away. But as biology has advanced, we have understood more and more about it. Bill Conrad is there. He's a biophysicist. He's our senior most member at 95 years. So now let me change the question a little bit and put it this way, because we have discussed this. We have something called a philosophy cafe here in the Ethical Society, which meets once a month. And among the leaders, there are philosophers from Colombia, from CUNY. So among the leaders is Massimo. He is the head of philosophy at CUNY. And he's a biologist by training and also a philosopher. So his argument is exactly this. When I ask him, we had discussions on consciousness studies. So where do you stand on the hard problem of consciousness? He dismisses it. He says there's no fundamental thing called consciousness. It's just a process of a living brain. It's a byproduct, epiphenomenal process. And the answer he gives, the reason he gives is exactly this. He says, right now, because we don't understand the brain well enough and consciousness well enough, at all we don't understand. That's why we think there's a mysterious thing called consciousness, which has to be discovered.
Again, I made this kind of argument before about how in religion, they used to think God was in the clouds because thunderstorming. It's like, oh, you upset God, that's why it's thunderstorming, or the volcanoes erupting, the earth is shaking. They believe that to be God because they don't know how to explain it. And this is kind of why I was kind of hesitant. It's like, we just maybe because science hasn't advanced far enough that they can't pinpoint where our consciousness is in our brain. Right now, they can actually scan your brain to see neural activities whenever you think something, do something, but maybe that's as far as technology has come in science. And maybe a few more, 10 more years, 4 decades or whatever, century, maybe science will advance further enough to find out maybe where the consciousness is. Who knows? I don't know. Just who knows? The possibility is out there. Who knows?
But a similar thing was there, he said, at the turn of the century, where life was not understood. And it was thought that one of the questions which science will never be able to explain is life. And people called it things like Elan Vital, Bergson, and all this. So there is something corresponding to the Indian idea of prana. All ancient cultures had this. Chinese had the idea of chi, and Japanese had the idea of ki, and the Indians had the idea of prana. Greeks had the idea of pneuma, the life breath. Now, as science has advanced, we have understood that what we call life is basically a collection of several biological processes going on in this body, he said. And to a great extent, we are able to synthesize many parts of the similar things in a very simple way in the laboratory also. So we understand it down to the molecular level. We know it's not some mysterious single thing which comes and goes, not like that. That's what he said. So one day we will be able to understand consciousness also like that. One day, when we understand the brain better. So there's no such separate consciousness, all this consciousness being the ultimate reality or the soul, immortal soul, which religions believe in. Nothing like that. He says that. Now, the answer is, I'll give you the simple Vedantic answer, see if it makes sense. To me, it makes perfect sense. You'll be surprised to know that according to Vedanta, life is also material. World is material, body is material, life is material, mind is material. By material, the Sanskrit word I'm using is jada. The original Sanskrit word they have, chit jada, consciousness and matter. How do they distinguish? They have a very elegant way of distinguishing in Vedanta. What is consciousness and what is not consciousness? He says you'll always look at your own experience. In your experience right now, whatever you are aware of belongs to the category of jada, objective reality. What is objective? That which appears to consciousness.
Forgot about those 3 terminologies. What is it? A subjective reality, objective reality, and absolute reality. Brahman's absolute reality, what we see in our world is objective reality, and what we think in our minds, what we think is subjective reality, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Then what is consciousness? Clearly it cannot be an object. Anything that is object must be jada, an object to consciousness. So the pure subject, which is not an object, which is the one which is aware of everything, including mind, that is consciousness according to Advaita Vedanta. Now what follows from this? What will Advaitins say to an objection like this? Advaitin will say there's no problem that you have been able to explain life in terms of other objective processes. One objective process is explained in terms of simpler objective processes. Of course, in principle there's no problem. Prana or life is an objective process. And you have explained it in terms of other simpler objective processes. Good. But if you now claim that a set of objective processes in the brain is generating the subject, which is not an object. You must remember the knife with which they are cutting reality in Vedanta. Subject and object. Why will I accept that? Because that's how you experience the universe.
I lost you, Doc. I lost you, sir.
Wait.
Life is an objective reality.
Okay.
Because first of all, remember what I'm defining as objective. Anything that you are aware of or can be aware of is an object.
Okay.
Anything that is presented to consciousness is jada, is not conscious. You are consciousness, and your mind, your thoughts, your breath, prana, body, world, all are objects, jada. Are you with me so far? You have to change the paradigm. Now, in this paradigm, life also is an object. And you have explained life in terms of other objects. Biological processes. There's an objective process of life, and they have been explained in terms of how there is the physiology of the body and all of that. They're all objective. So an objective process explained in terms of more simpler objective processes. There's no problem in principle.
Okay.
But now, the pure subject, consciousness, how can it be produced by objects? The brain is an object. Whatever is happening in the neurons is an object. So one object can produce another object. So neurons can produce the electrical activity of neurons. But how can it produce you, the subject? Why it does not make sense to you or a scientifically trained person is, the scientifically trained person has a deep objective bias.
I mean, science is objective. I think objective, absolute, and that is it. Science doesn't deal with subjective and absolute reality, which is, I think a science would see that as objective reality as well, because if it's there, I don't think science would distinguish between objective reality and absolute reality. I think you'll see those two as one and the same. However, the definition of Brahman may be confusing to a science because, again, they talked about like the God particle, and that, so I don't know what the God particle is. I heard about it and whatever it is, but basically I have a feeling that when science discovers the absolute smallest thing in the universe that makes up existence, I have a feeling that's what they're going to call Brahman. Basically, this whatever this is going to be Brahman. It's going to be in all things that exist. But how do you create a conscious? I don't know.
According to science, look at the tremendous contradiction at the heart of science. Science studies everything as an object. It cannot but do that.
Yes.
What do you do when you do science? Be objective. So everything that is studied is an object, and that works fine when you are studying objects. But when you are studying the subject, the only way science can work is to reduce the subject into an object. Not only that, science has earlier made up its mind that the object is the only reality. Everything in the universe is an object. But that's not true. That is falsified by your own experience. What science has already made up its mind is that what you are calling subject is a byproduct of an objective brain. Are you with me at every step?
Yes. I can understand the fundamental, primordial, not in this philosophical, not in spiritual sense, the scientists have done that way right from the very beginning. I can understand that.
Let us call it the primitive, the primordial the paradigm difference. Science never considers this. Science says this talk about subject-object is the way of talking. Actually, everything is an objective reality. No. All of it is fine as long as you are studying quasars or quarks or living cells. They're all objects. Even when you're trying to study the mind, according to Vedanta, even mind is an object. Why is mind an object? Because what is the definition of object? Anything that you experience is an object. But by that very definition, when you now say the objective thing like the living brain can produce the subject, you are making what is called in philosophy a category error. And this is very clear from Vedantic perspective.
Where is the necessity to invoke category error?
Because object and object relationship is clear. But the subject is something entirely different in nature from an object. How can you jump from the object to the subject? Never in scientific history have you ever come across something like consciousness. And it's strange that you have not. Because consciousness is ever present. All science is done in consciousness. It is, we are first person experience is conscious. And that is where you do science. That is where you are a theist and atheist. That is where you are scientific or unscientific. Everything in life is in consciousness from a Vedantic perspective. Not in Vedantic perspective, in a common sense perspective also. So, this consciousness, it's not an object. This is what Vedanta says. This is what science is unable to grasp. Look at all the prevalent theories of consciousness now. They're either reductive, that some are like Massimo told me, that it is a process of the living brain. We don't know how. Give us time, we will find out. This is called promissory materialism. I'll give you a materialistic explanation. I promise. 10 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years, we will find out. What David Chalmers in NYU says, that you don't understand the question. What you feel as first-person experiences, pleasure, pain, there is something there, that first-personness of that experience, there is no connection between that and the objective realities in the world. In fact, if you look at your own experience, your personal experience, these objective experiences are in you. Yes. Will come, yes. These objective realities are experienced in consciousness. Isn't it? What is more primary in your experience? You, the experiencer. Then only experience is possible.
Are we to understand consciousness is something like, say, I have magnesium in my body, there's magnesium everywhere, or iron everywhere, I own part of the iron and magnesium?
No, not even like that. Iron and magnesium still are objective realities.
Is it like a light force, an electromagnetic force?
No. Life force, electromagnetic force, they are also objective realities. Just use that thing. See, what we are saying is, attend to your own experience, right here and right now. What is there in your experience? Just do this. What is there in your experience? There are many things that you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. And what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, varied though they are all objects. What you think and feel and understand and remember, very subtle things, but they're also objects. Why am I calling them objects? Because you're aware of them.
And he can add this to his arsenal. You can actually see the neurons firing when you have emotion, thoughts, or even action. You can see the neurons being fired in your brain. So you can add that to it. So even your thoughts are actually physical, which is proof, I think now. Again, we definitely got to do the research on that. But if I remember correctly, I watched a YouTube video. Obviously, YouTube tells nothing but the truth. But they put a person in an MRI machine, I believe, and they showed images in his brain, and they were talking about love, by the way, and they were just showing like puppies. You know, they see like the brain starts blowing up a little bit, not literally. That's messy. But then they showed, I guess, the wife or the husband, and the brain just lights up, and basically they were trying to see what goes on in the brain and to see if they can measure love. But at the same time, they're kind of proving that thoughts or certain things, emotions, are in fact, exploding in your brain in a sense.
Now that which is aware of all of this, is it an object?
Do you believe in the Socratic logic, say, something new cannot arise, it must be dormant all along?
Yes.
Do you believe there's consciousness in dormant and non-living things?
Yes.
Plants and animals, and then sentient beings?
Good question. Do you believe that something new cannot arise? That question I forgot to answer. That how can your universe come from nothing? That's a good question. So, do you believe that consciousness is dormant in all living beings? You know what would be if you understand the answer which I'm going to give from a Vedantic perspective, then you will get Vedanta. Vedanta says.
Before he answers that, I think I kind of answered it, but I think I might have answered it a bit wrong. With the explanation how Brahman and Shiva, how our egos are what's created. Well, never mind. No, I did not make a mistake on that thing. Actually,
It's
never
not
mind.
that consciousness is dormant or active somewhere in the universe. Rather, the universe lies dormant in consciousness. According to Vedanta, the consciousness is the reality in which the universe lies dormant, and then it appears. You can call it a big bang, you can call it evolution, life appearing, and then conscious beings appearing like us, and then life disappearing and the universe ending, going back to dormancy. Gita says, from the unmanifest, the manifest comes and goes back to the unmanifest. But unmanifest, manifest, and unmanifest again. This cycle, it's all happening in consciousness. And Advaita Vedanta will go forward and say, it's not even happening. It's a movie being played. The reality all throughout is a changeless consciousness.
Changeless.
See, I'll end with this. The 4 possibilities are there. I'll just give you in a seed form this answer.
Wait. What do you mean by changeless? As in, whenever I explain time travel in such a way of like a movie playing. But the problem with the time traveler or movie playing is that everything in the future is already predetermined for you. So there's nothing you can do to change it. You are literally, I wouldn't say a victim of the movie, but you are a character in a movie. But you have no choice but to play your role and do your part. There's no changing anything about you because it's all already been laid out for you. That's changeless and like a movie.
And I read it from a non-dualist teacher in Hindi who had no idea of modern science. He says, consciousness and matter, let's call it object, matter, the material universe and consciousness, what is the relationship? There are 4 possibilities are there. One is, consciousness emerges from matter, which is the old materialistic Charvaka argument in ancient India, and which is exactly the modern scientific argument. Matter, time, space, matter, energy, this is fundamental. And at one point, planets develop, living, more complex matter comes, organic matter, and from that living beings come, and they organize themselves more and more by Darwinian evolution into complex beings, and then they develop nervous systems and brains, and from those nervous systems and brains, all material. There's a byproduct called consciousness. Just like a flame from a candle, epiphenomenal. And there is no consciousness without matter. So matter is the reality out of which consciousness flickers somehow. That's one theory. The second theory is just the opposite. Matter emerges from consciousness. Whose theory is this? All religions hold it. When they say God is the creator, that's religious language. If you ask them, is your God conscious or unconscious? They'll all say, our God is conscious. So actually, matter emerges from consciousness. Consciousness is the creator of a material universe. Religion says. Which religion? All theistic religions say it. Second theory.
That's interesting.
This is not Advaita, not non-dualism. Third, neither emerges from the other. Both are eternal and parallel. Sankhya theory, Purusha Prakriti.
Right.
Consciousness and time, space, matter, energy, Prakriti, they exist eternally parallel to each other and interact. Where do they interact? In us. We are consciousness interacting with matter. That's a living being, according to Sankhya. Very sophisticated theory. In fact, what David Chalmers is proposing now as panpsychism here, it's a variation, not exactly Sankhya, but a variation of the Sankhya theory. This is also not Advaita. There is another one which he has not counted, which is the Nagarjuna's Buddhistic theory. Matter is also Shunya, consciousness is also Shunya. Both are appearances in the void. It's a different thing to explore. Now, if you add that, then that's the fourth one. The fifth one is the Advaita theory. The Advaita theory is consciousness alone is real. It's the only reality in which matter appears. Consciousness does not create matter. It does not become matter. Matter appears periodically as universe, as life, and as conscious beings, and disappears. But consciousness is fundamental. That consciousness, I'm using the English word consciousness. There's no parallel to it. You might say, what proof? I will leave you with this. The proof is, look at your own experience. Where does matter appear? Where does matter appear?
Oh. Wait, where does matter appear? I was thinking that like your experiences throughout life, when you touch something, you're not really sensing it here. You're not sensing it as it goes up your arm. You're not sensing it as it goes up to your brain. And as your brain interprets it, that's where you're experiencing matter, which is your consciousness. Is that what he's talking about?
Consciousness.
In your mind.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Where does mind appear? In consciousness. Where does mind disappear? In deep sleep. In consciousness.
That's a good one. That is a good one. It still doesn't necessarily destroy the first theory, which is what I think I believe. Although that is a very good argument, though. Both of those are freaking really good, I would say that. Although the second one, which is the religious belief about God being conscious, therefore creating existence, a consciousness is creating existence, which is almost the same as his, but it's just the sheer fact that God itself is also included within that consciousness, I believe. So there's no God, there's just consciousness, which God is created from, or maybe the beings are created, which created God, or something like that. But I see the separation between 2 and 5, I believe it was 5, and 1 and 5. Yeah. But 1 and 5, I like those two. 1 is my hope, I guess. I don't know. It seems to make sense, but at the same time, 5 does too, what he's talking about here.
Very good. Profound matters. Now let us eat. Some matter is necessary. Consciousness demands matter now. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
I like that last part. That was really good. That's a good question. He spent a lot of time on that one. What was it? What was that last part? Is the presence of prana an illusion? No, I don't think that was the question. Whew. Yeah. So, and I guess I've been saying it like the first explanation he had about matter creating consciousness. Because my explanation for consciousness is the fact that, for one, it's in our brain. That's my theory, my belief. And it's the neurons firing that creates consciousness. Although that doesn't really hold up too well, even my own thinking. Because the neurons firing brings up memories, brings up things you like and don't like. But those memories don't make decisions, and there's where the problem lies. Your memories don't make up decisions. It's like reading a hard drive. You know, you can see all the stuff that you put on there, but it doesn't say whether to play it, or to do it, or to delete it, or anything like that. It's the input from a user. The consciousness is going into that hard drive and looking at it all and says, that looks good, let's do that. Where does that consciousness come from? It's not in the hard drive, and that's what he's explaining. That's interesting. That's interesting. I just can't help the fact that I believe in that, and yet I'm destroying my own theory. I still believe in it, though. One of the twos. 5 does make quite a lot of sense, but it's hard to believe in an immaterialistic thing. But consciousness as Brahman, being a materialistic thing, reinforces 1 for me. That's the reason why I believe in that. And 5, consciousness is, or Brahman, I think, it's really weird. I don't think it says it's immaterial. Yet whenever you explain Brahman being all of time, not excluded from time, all of space, not excluded from space, and all materials not excluded any material. So basically it's existence throughout time and space. But it makes it a material object, though, which is what I'm doing. What makes sense to me. So I'm not going to sit there and tell you that's what you must believe. No, you know, it's up to you. Figure out what the world makes sense to you and work with it. And so the things that I've changed so far, actually I kind of wanted to say this, the things that I've changed I don't know if I changed or not, honestly, but here's my belief. Brahman. It is the absolute. It is literally existence itself. It's the thing that everything is created in the universe, the galaxies, whatever the biggest thing about universe or thing is. So Brahman is that. It is the smallest thing that creates everything. It's not excluded from anything because without it, it does not exist. Maya. Maya to me is not an illusion. It's a misunderstanding. It's basically you think that you are not Brahman, but you are because you are existence. Therefore, you are Brahman. So Maya is not to say that this life is illusion. It's real. It's just that you misunderstood it as. It's hard for me to define that, but you misunderstood it that you're separate from existence, but you're not. You're all part of existence. You're part of Brahman. 3. Consciousness. So far, I've held on to this theory that the consciousness is in your brain somewhere. It's a piece of the brain. It's not the entirety of the brain. He reduced my thought on what a consciousness is from a brain to a piece of the brain now. What that piece is, I don't know. And where does consciousness come from? I think, again, still the brain, still that first theory he talked about how the material creates this consciousness. I have a feeling it's the electrical signal somehow does it, but it's kind of weird though. Still, because again, I think of the brain as a hard drive, and a hard drive does not make decisions. Well, that's just my theory for now. Anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.